That is Bix Weir for your Roadside Chat on February 13th, 2017. Today we're going to talk about the COMEX, the criminal COMEX, aka the CRIMEX. What went on there in 2016 and why it is so amazingly outrageous. Even more outrageous than the CFTC not doing anything about the silver manipulation that Deutsche Bank has already admitted to. And it continues to this day. Donald Trump has not stopped it as of yet. We will see what happens when he gets his new Treasury Secretary in there. But given that Steve Mnuchin is a computer rigger from Goldman Sachs, that was his job. He was the head of IT, computer market rigging at Goldman Sachs. I doubt there will be much change at all. But let's just talk about the COMEX, what happened last year. And truthfully, I think you'll be in shock over what I'm about to show you that went on in 2016 on the COMEX. Here's a press release from the CME right after the end of the year bragging about the huge jump in their daily volume. 15.6 million contracts in 2016, up 12% from 2015. Great news for the COMEX, the CME. They make money off every trade, so yahoo for them. Good job. But look what else they're reporting. Down at the bottom, they talk about metals volume averaged a record 488,000 contracts per day in the fourth quarter 2016, up 49% from the fourth quarter in 2015. Highlights include grew gold futures and options average daily volume 51% to 279,000 contracts. Increased silver futures and options average daily volume 45% to 80,000 contracts every single day. 80,000 contracts. What does that mean? Futures and options are electronic silver. They are not real silver, they're not physical silver, but that's where the price is determined on the COMEX. So going forward, what do we know? In 2016, the average daily volume of COMEX silver futures and options contracts rose 41% from 57,000 contracts per day to 80,000 contracts every single day. In 2016, this is very interesting. Silver mine production fell 3% from 899 million to 866 million ounces. So you have a falling mine production, falling amount of silver coming into the market, but for some reason the electronic silver contracts had to rise 41%. Huge rise throughout the year of 2016. So let's do the math. 80,000 contracts every day. One contract is worth 5,000 ounces of electronic silver, which is equal to 400 million silver ounces per day in futures and options were traded. Now, these are just a handful of banks trading these back and forth, mind you. These aren't your average Joe Schmo walking down to his coin store to buy a few rounds. These are just the banks rigging the price, trading it back and forth and back and forth. So of those 400 million ounces every day, you times that by 252 trading days in the year, and that gives you a nice round total of 100 billion 800 million ounces of electronic silver that were traded on the COMEX last year. In a world where mine production fell 3% to 866 million ounces, for some reason they thought it was necessary to hedge with over 100 billion ounces. Criminal. Here's how criminal it is. In the history of humanity, only 50 to 60 billion ounces of silver, physical silver, has ever been mined in history, and yet last year they traded 100 billion in futures and option contract for silver. None of that, very, very, very small amount of that is actually used for hedging. Now, here's the other thing. Everybody talks about the physical to electronic ratio. Jeffrey Christian in the CFTC meeting said it was about 100 to 1. That is completely ridiculous. The amount of physical silver in the COMEX warehouse is 30 million ounces. 30 million ounces. That's all there is in registered physical silver in the COMEX warehouse. During the course of the year, over 100 billion ounces of silver were traded. Just doing the math off the top of my head, that is a ratio of around 3,350 to 1. It's not 100 to 1. 3,350 to 1 electronic silver trades happened in 2016 compared to the 30 million ounces that were in inventory. And here's the kicker. These days, because of all the losses that were taken in the early 2000s when silver went up to $50 and everybody had to close out their hedge positions, very few silver miners had hedged their production. The only ones that do are the criminals like Barrick Gold and Frenzinelli and anybody associated with George Soros or Carlos Slim. So yeah, it is just a fraud beyond fraud beyond fraud. And the interesting thing is they had to ramp up the fraud last year so much that they had to rise the amount of electronic silver sold from 57,000 contracts to 80,000 contracts, which is over 100 billion ounces of electronic silver, just to control the price of silver. So let's talk about whether or not these futures and options are actually being used for what they were created for. They were created so that people didn't have to take risk on the value of their silver. They could hedge their silver. And price risk is very important to manage for companies like mining companies or production companies, coin dealers. All of them use the hedging market to hedge their production. And it's very understandable and upfront way of doing business. And I have no problem with that at all. The problem I have is that they're using that as an excuse to rig the silver market. Now, according to Jeffrey Christian, back in 2012, during the Silver Summit Conference, he put up this slide claiming that, oh my God, so many people need to use futures and options to mitigate their risk on silver prices. And so he laid out a chart of the total amount of potential hedging that needs to be done. And you can see from this chart, he comes out with 3.3 billion ounces of total amount of silver that would need to be hedged. I think a lot of this is ridiculous, but here it is. This is according to the mouthpiece of the bullion banks, Jeffrey Christian. The big one being silver on lease to jewelers. He's saying 1 billion ounces is hedged by jewelers. I doubt that highly. I highly doubt that. But hey, that's the maximum amount he said. Rough estimates of silver long positions of bullion banks at any given moment. These jewelers and the electronic companies, according to Jeffrey Christian, they all go through the bullion banks to hedge their product. But this is the maximum amount you'd ever need is 3,300 million ounces to be hedged. And according to Jeffrey, everything else would be just speculation. That's the key. With 100 billion ounces traded, that's where he gets his 100 to 1 estimate, is that he takes every single ounce in the world and then equates it to what's going on the COMEX. But there's more than just the COMEX. There's the LBMA, which trades over 125 billion ounces of electronic silver. They say it's physical silver, but we all know it's not. And then there's other markets that run futures and options. There is no real physical market for silver where people go in with cash to buy physical silver and then walk out. Everything's futures and options and derivatives. Insanity is reigning on the COMEX, on the electronic silver markets. It continues to this day. The CFTC close their eyes and just say, go about your business. As long as we can control the value of silver, control the value of gold, we can control the unbacked fiat monetary system. And that's exactly what they're doing with futures and options on the COMEX and with the silver market. That's your update for today. I'm a little riled up because I just saw this and it's just ridiculous with the amount of mined silver going down, silver mining companies losing their shirts at these low prices, and then the COMEX traders, aka JP Morgan, HSBC, Deutsche Bank, get in there and rig the market with their derivatives to the tune of 100 billion ounces at the COMEX, 125 billion ounces at the LBMA, and then the rest throughout the world. It's ridiculous what's going on. It needs to stop, and hopefully Trump will do something about it, but so far, nothing. So far, it's rig away. You know, he hasn't slammed anything down, but that's all just a phone call away and a click of a mouse. So be prepared for anything going forward. I do think Trump at some point will let the markets trade freely, and when that happens, it's going to get crazy. That's it for me. Go to roadtoruta.com, put your email in there for free emails and updates on this situation. Also, subscribe and like this video, send it to all your friends, post it, tweet it, do everything with it. We need to get this word out to everybody so they know what to do, know what's going on in the silver market. Get your physical in your own possession, and you won't be steered wrong. I'll talk to you later.